Grand Rising to the first 100. Bid you a grand rising. I'm on my morning mental this morning. I'm going to jump right into it. First, I'm going to give some praise to the Most High. I'm going to lift up the name of the Creator. I am going to acknowledge that I didn't do any of this. I didn't create any of this. I didn't come up with any of this. I am simply a piece on the chessboard, just like you. When you wake up in the morning and you begin to think about what you have to do today, some of you all just take off and go do it. But what you should do is do nothing and listen to the voice inside your head. If there is no voice there, that's a problem that we have to deal with some other time. But you should listen to the voice in your head, because that is the voice of the Creator. Even if it's just a question, it is still the Creator. He might be giving you a piece of information that will come in handy later on in the day. Or he could be giving you an answer to a problem that you can't solve in the conscious state, but that you are calm enough and focused enough in your unconscious state that you figured it out. You ever had a dream, and when you woke up, you didn't remember it? You didn't. You just know you slept well. And then you go about your day, and something in the middle of the day reminds you of everything you dreamed of. And you say, oh, I remember my dream now. But you still don't realize what just happened. You crossed the inclusion point. That was the point in your life where the dream, the information contained in it, was relevant to you to make the right decision. Every decision in this life is split like my fingers. You have two choices no matter what you do. You can go this way or you can go this way. You can't go both. And if you don't have the right information, you just might choose to go the wrong way. It's like branches on a tree. So in the morning mental this morning, I got to really hit y'all in the head with something. It's going to be kind of heavy. And I'm not just speaking to members of the NFAC. I'm not just speaking to members of the United Black Kemetic Nation. I'm not speaking to those people who agree with me. I'm speaking to everybody. I don't care who you are, because what I'm going to lay down this morning applies to everybody. And it doesn't make a difference of your skin color, your religious preference, how much money you have, who you hooked up with, who you were born, whose name you carry. It doesn't make a difference, because if you strip all of that away, you're nothing but an animal that can think, that's on earth, who bleeds and dies and passes away like everything else here. Let's just deal with the core. Ronald Reagan once said in an address to the United Nations that he says, sometimes I wonder what would happen if this planet found itself confronted by a threat from outside of the earth, something that threatened every last one of us, something that would put an end to everything It would be interesting to see how fast our differences would dissolve. It would be amazing to see how quickly we all in this together would suddenly become the theme. It would be an interesting situation. It would also expose who's brave and who's terrified. He said that, and everybody kind of looked at him like, why would he say that? Well, maybe he knew some things as the president that you did not. There are groups on this planet who don't take immediate revenge against you. They take what we call long-term revenge against you. I once told someone that if you cross me, I will go to war on you and the next 30 generations of your family. And they looked at me with this blank stare because they did not understand what I meant by that. In other words, what I'm saying to you is the same type of crime that was committed against the people of the Most High, which was not committed against a person or persons. It was committed against a bloodline. And the bloodline game is something that black folks don't even know how to play anymore, when we used to be the masters of it. You commit a crime against the bloodline, then retribution must be against the bloodline. And the bloodline will run for the extent of the punishment. So if I say what you've done to me was so egregious that the next 30 generations of your bloodline will pay for it, then I devise a system and a history and a method of information transmission so that all of my descendants know that there is a price to be exacted against your descendants, and they will do it without question. Meanwhile, you're walking around talking about, but that was so long ago. Why are they still mad about that? Why? What's going on? I don't get it. Bloodline. Retribution. Over generations. Against not a population, but against nations. I bid you all a grand rising and welcome you to the Morning Mental. It's good to be back in your ear hole, sharing that space that you have for yourself to keep you sane. It's been a rather interesting 24 hours. So today, if you all don't mind, I would like to deal with the judge, the book, and the cover. The judge, the book, and the cover. Y'all remember when we were in school before the internet and all of this stuff came about, where you didn't need to carry books because now you have the ability to have knowledge in the palm of your hand, even if it's not being censored? Back in the day when we went to school, or we were about to go back to school, we would say to ourselves, well, I got my new clothes. I got my new shoes. I got all my supplies. And you couldn't wait to get to school so they could issue your textbooks, even though we know the textbooks is flawed now, but back then you didn't, because you were still asleep. But you couldn't wait to get your book. Why? Because y'all don't remember this, but there used to be a market for what they call book covers. Yes, book covers. Book covers were something that you could either create yourself out of newspaper, or you could buy one in the store, and you would cover your book with the book cover. Why? Because at the end of the school year, you had to turn the book back in. I don't like when people come into my presence and disregard what we're doing. So for that matter, I'm now disabling comments. I'm getting sick of y'all. I really am. I'm gonna be honest. Some of y'all ain't learned nothing since the day we started. And then y'all wonder why I don't let nobody in here no more, and why I'm not really trying to save everybody, just those that actually are on the same wavelength. Some of you all are big ass kids, and I'm not even going to deal with it. Comments are suspended. But you bought the book cover because you wanted the book to be in good condition when you returned it to the school. You had to turn it in at the end of the year. And if your book was all tore up, if the cover was, if the pages was ripped, if you don't wrote in it, you had to pay for the book. So y'all don't remember those days, but we do. So the book cover said a whole lot about your personality, but it said nothing about the book itself. That's why they say never judge a book by its cover. That's where that comes from, youngins. Sadly enough, that is a loaded statement that I will use to unpack something today that will demonstrate to all of you all who are smart enough to follow my oration that we are repeating history in every detail, not just its successes, but its failures, which goes to prove that we haven't learned anything in the last 70 years. I will prove that, and I will lay my case before you. And when I'm done with that, I will then challenge you to go into a completely different direction. And for most of us, the same way most people don't make up their beds when they leave the house in the morning, a lot of y'all can't make up your minds because it's real easy to not make your bed because it's simply a matter of choice and whether you're lazy or not. When it comes to changing one's mind, the fact of the matter is if you're lazy and choose not to do it, then you can't sit around in front to everybody like your bed made up too. I bid you all a grand rising welcome to the Morning Mental as I begin to unpack part 1 of the judge, the book, and the cover. Let's start with the judge. People are quick to tell you, you can't judge me. Don't judge me. Who are you to judge me? To judge someone is to offer your opinion on something that they are doing and then think that your opinion has the power to change, prevent, or deter them from such a behavior. We mistake our opinions as having the power of judgment when they don't. And some of you give the power of judgment to people's opinions when you shouldn't. If somebody tells you that they don't like the fact that you worship a certain way or that you have a certain preference on a certain issue, if they're expressing their opinion, it's their opinion. But if you give it that much power, because you don't want to hear that because it might make you think and change your mind, you'll fight back. You can't judge me. No one's judging anyone. As a matter of fact, it is written, judge not, lest ye be judged. Plain English. Don't judge me unless you want me to judge you. It has been written, point no finger at anyone, because when you point your finger at somebody and start pointing out all their flaws, there are 3 fingers pointed back at you. And when it comes to that, I'm reminded of a scene from the movie The 10 Commandments, which was done by white people, so we're going to get past the cosmetics. But there is a scene where the Pharaoh, he's on his yacht. He's on his yacht. And he is, he out being the Pharaoh, riding around, plush, G'd up, got his folks with him. He entourage deep, laid back, eating grapes. Everybody's calling him the morning star, that they're treating him like he's a god, and he's eating it all up. And all of a sudden, out there on the shore, here comes broke ass Moses with his homie, talking about, yo, man, let the people go. The man told me to come tell you, let the people go. And the people had just about enough of him. They got tired of him always coming with that mess. We up here trying to enjoy being royal and being in the entourage of the king, and we eating the good food, drinking good wine, and everybody praising us and stroking our ego, donating to our cash apps, believing the bullshit that we spew, and we just having a ball. And here you come with that, oh, let the people go, blah, blah, blah. And so the guys with the swords, they were going to jump out the boat and proceed to swim on over to where he was and stab him, cut him, chop him up, put his blood in the water and kill him. And the Pharaoh said something that I will never forget, because I was a child when I heard this, and I thought it was smooth that he said it. But now that I'm older, I realize that it is very wise to do just what the Pharaoh said. They were like, the guy pulled out the sword and said, he'll know the taste of a sword. And the Pharaoh was cool. Yul Brynner was cool. Y'all, old OGs, triple OGs, y'all remember Yul. Yul looked at him and said, no, let him rave that men will know him mad. The guy looked at him and was like, yeah. He put his sword away. Little did they know that there was nothing mad about Moses. When people tend to judge you, you have the choice to draw your sword because you've heard enough of the BS, or you can sit back and let people rave so that everyone else will know them mad. You don't have to respond to every attack that comes to you that you did not initiate. If someone is attacking your character, if someone is attacking your accomplishments, if someone is attacking the way you look, the way you talk, the way you walk, if someone is attacking you because you won't join or succumb to peer pressure, and you did nothing to initiate that attack, sit back and do nothing and let the Lord of hosts deal with them. I have told you all time and time again, there is a spirit of karma that is floating around this planet, and 2020 has been just that. Perfect vision, crystal clarity, and stuff that people thought was dead and buried and that they got away with is now seeing the light of day. You all saw the post concerning the rapper Lil Wayne, the same one that said that he didn't support Black Lives Matter because that didn't apply to him, that he was just about making records and having sex with women and flossing, and that the rest of that stuff didn't bother him. Now this morning, he finds himself in federal custody facing federal gun laws violations, possession of a gun by a felon a year ago. Right. You see how that karma came back around? Well, if you are judging and you are sitting there, letting your judgment, letting your opinions drive your behavior toward another individual, then you too will suffer the fate of the law of karma. And sometimes it can affect entire groups of people. And when I say judge, you have to understand there's good judging and there's bad judging. Good judging would be Deborah. Sister, stand up. Deborah was a sister. Yes, this was a black woman. Deborah was a sister that when it came time to have a king, that when it came time to somebody to stand up and lead the fight, that when it came time to stand on the square, stand for the people, stand what you believe in, when it came time for somebody to bleed and die for the people, when it came time for somebody to dedicate themselves to the cause of the people, even if they wouldn't be there to see the results, no man could step up or wouldn't step up. No man had the courage. No man was brave enough. No man. And since kings could only be men, and queens were always, now y'all don't want to hear this, but this is how it was. Queens were the royal partners of the kings with one job and one job only: produce the next king. You see, kings could only come through the sister. You couldn't go out and just grab nobody and say, he the king. It didn't work that way. So the king had to be very, very wise in who he put his seed into, because that person would bring forth the next king. when there were no kings available to stand for the people. And since Deborah couldn't be a king, and she damn sure couldn't be the queen because there was nobody to put a seed in her to come forth, she became the judge. Same powers as the king, still handling business. But she stepped in and became the judge. And she led the armies, and she led the nation, and she fought the battles, and she stood. She was a judge. You got to go see the judge, but not the kind of judge that's working for the judicial system that's based on the history of slavery. Not the judge that's based on the rulership of some folks in a foreign land and they don't sent you to be an extension of their power, but the judge of whether or not you live or die, period. No trial, no talking about it. What'd he do? He did this. What hand did he do it with? This one. Hand got chopped off. Have a good day. What'd she do? She did this. Who she do it with? She did it with him. Killed both of them, kept it moving. What's good for the people? This. What's bad for the people? That. What do we need to do to get the good stuff? We're going to have to do this, 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 and this. It is so. Make it happen. She was a judge. So that's a good judge. There's good judges. The bad judge are the individuals who self-appoint themselves as authorities when no one gave them this authority, and then try to force their point of view on the very people who didn't give them the authority in the first place. You make up your mind about something, you sit in judgment of someone, and then you decide to act as jury and executioner. This is the problem that we have with the model of policing in the world today, not just in America. These individuals who are people just like you, put their pants on the same way you do, eat, sleep, and piss out of the same window, throw stuff out the window that you do, suddenly believe that they have the ability to act as judge, jury, and executioner for whatever reasons over the fellow man. In other words, they're acting as a judge when nobody made them a judge. Then there are those of you all who sit in judgment when something happens that you have a personal problem with, and it has nothing to do with right or wrong. It is whether or not you yourself can get over the fact that the Most High has made a decision and has manifested it in a certain way that it applies to everybody, including you. Remember, Moses was a murderer and ran off into the desert, was gone, totally forgotten, left his woman, left the house, left everything. Man gone. Bruh came back, rejuvenated, empowered by the Most High, came back. And even though he was doing great things, even though he had a great message, even though he was trying to free his people, even though he put up with all kind of ridicule and abuse, there were still those who just didn't like the fact that Moses got the job and they didn't. They didn't care about freeing the people. They mad that they had spent their whole life trying to do, but never getting chosen to do what Yah chose someone else to do. So they sit in judgment of Yah's decision and they hate on it as if karma will not be exacted upon them. The judge, you too are guilty of being a judge. You've been a judge because you sat here and you've seen things with your own eyes. You've read things, you've heard things. People have even tried to share things with you so that you can have a crystal clear focus on exactly what it is that we're all concentrating on and trying to get done. But you, in your jealousy, or I don't even want to call it jealousy, you in your infinite wisdom, you decided, oh, I see that they want to play games with us this morning. They're asking me, do I want to end the morning mental? Instagram is talking to me right now. Y'all can't see what I'm seeing. They're asking me, do I want to end this? This is a new feature. I've never seen this before. No, I don't. I've answered no. We're going to keep on pushing. That's interesting. Welcome, Instagram. So glad that y'all could pull up in person to find out what's cooking over here, because we got a bone to pick with you. And for y'all who don't know, yes, we were contemplating pulling up to some of these companies, the NFAC, so we could find out what the problem is with all the censorship and the blocking and, all the violation of First Amendment rights. And then we found out that most of them are working from home. There's nobody at the building in Silicon Valley. There's nobody there. So there was no need to pull up. We had to pull up to their crib. So we didn't want to pull up to the crib because, once again, here come the judges. And the judges is something that we find ourselves doing, judging folks. And we do it without thinking. How would you feel if you went to court and the judge just made a decision without hearing the case? The judge just made a decision without looking at the circumstances that surround the case. The judge just made a decision. If you've been in the system, there's two different types of trials you can get. You can get a jury trial, or you can get a trial by judge. And there, depending on your offense, the judge might be a good idea. In other cases, the judge is always a bad idea. We're on the Morning Mental this morning, and I'm dealing with the judge, the book, and the cover. We tend to sit in judgment, which is not something that we can stop. It's part of our personality. Our problem is we tend to judge people based on flawed or false information. And the reason we do that is because we have not read the book, or we have not had the book read to us. You see, there's a very well-known story about a certain individual who was sitting around staring at the Holy Scriptures. And no matter how many times they read it, it made no sense to them. They couldn't figure it out. They tried to figure it out. They even tried to talk like they had it figured out. They stood on corners with bullhorns and told other people they had it figured it out. They built buildings and called people in and told them they had it figured it out. They even went out and enslaved people and beat them into the false belief that they had figured it out. And what we found out is, if you're a member of the Slave Masters Church, believe it or not, you are one of those people that has been made the victim of what someone else has sat down and become a judge of. And now they're teaching it to you, and you don't know any better because you ain't read the book, or you tried to read the book, but the book didn't make no sense to you because they rewrote the book in such a way that you couldn't understand it. They rewrote the book so that whatever they were going to tell you in their flawed judgment made sense. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's called church. Church is an institution that they bring you into to convince you that things are a certain way, and that if you don't believe them or don't go along with it, that the very being that created you will be pissed off at you. See how they brought the creator down to a human level? He's sitting around with all of this magnificence going on, got the universe to run, different dimensions, souls to manage, judgment to plan for, but he's sitting around mad at you because you don't believe what they told you. Y'all got me all mucked up this morning. We on the horse now. We about to pull out in a minute. Y'all get the gate up. We about to roll out. But so you get these folks who can't read the book, and then the people who come along that are supposed to read the book for you. Remember what I just told you before. Most of them are sitting in a judgment perspective. So rather than just giving you the information and making sure that it's crystal clear so you can make your own decision, come to your own conclusions, and answer all your questions, instead, it's tainted by their judgment. Yes, the man that you pay your money to go see every Sunday is judging you. And he's judging you by pressing upon you a bastardized, revised edition of the truth that too was rewritten by people who sat in judgment of you. The same way that you walk around in this world and act like, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Whose law are you abiding by? Are you abiding by man's law, or are you abiding by the laws of the Most High? Because if you're abiding by the laws of the Most High, the laws of man mean nothing to you. If you're abiding by the laws of man, then you think you have the ability to even change, disregard, ignore, pervert, adulterate, or rewrite the laws of the Most High. That's why we're here, because y'all ain't learned that part yet. And you don't get out of this class until you learn that it's a one-way conversation with the Creator, and that anyone he sends to expound upon what he has said, that if you turn upon them, if you judge them, if you pervert them, then he will deal with you too, even as a people. I don't say this often, so please make a note that I'm fully aware that the main reason that all the hateration is directed against me has nothing to do with my stance on guns. It has nothing to do with what I did before you knew about me. It is the fact that I teach directly from the linear line of blood that is transmitted through the 12 tribes, speaking directly to those descendants on behalf of the Most High, he that sent us. And when you compare these teachings against those of all the other people that you listen to, you can tell that something's wrong. I'm going to only say this one time. Oh no, I'm not invited to debates. Oh no, they never want to have me at the round table. They never want to rightly divide and exegete scripture with me. They never want to sit down and look at the relationship between all civilizations in one linear line instead of trying to profit off of people by teaching you just a piece. You see, I know for a fact why. What I don't understand is why some of you all are too blind to see that. And that's the only time I'm going to say this, because you can attack anything earthly, but you fear that which is translated from the above to you here on earth. Shall we continue? The book. Before you speak on people, before you are so quick to judge people, you might want to read their book. And you might find out that the very thing that you're sitting in judgment about is something that has been sent to you, because the last time it was sent to you, you made the same mistake. You judged incorrectly. There used to be a show back in the day when I was growing up called Let's Make a Deal. And, you know, I know they tried to revamp it, but no, back in the day, it was straight comedy. They used to always bring these people down in these ridiculous outfits, and they would always make them an offer. They try to give them something, but then they say, no, hold on a minute. Before you make that decision, how about you take what's behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? Now, you didn't know what was behind the door. You can keep what you got, or you can look behind door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. Sometimes what was behind door number 1 was 10 times better than what you was holding on to. Sometimes what was behind door number 2 was a joke, and you found out you let go of what you had and you went after something that turned out to be a bunch of BS because you listened to people. Or door number 3 was the bonus one of all. It was nothing. So you have to realize that when Yah is making a deal with you, when Yah sends something to you, a lot of y'all end up playing that same game instead of realizing that he already has chosen what's best for you. He already knows the pathway out. He's already decided who's going to be the stars and who's going to be the extras. He's already decided that. It is not for you to decide. It is not for us to judge. He that has sent to judge us for him. Remember, a judge passes a sentence that you have to serve. Remember? So be careful when you sit in judgment yourself, especially when you're judging a book that you haven't read yet. Oh, but I know why we do that. We do that because, as I told y'all earlier, we like to judge books by their cover. Yeah, you're judging books by the cover. Oh, it's getting hot up in here now. Somebody open a window. Because when you think about it, if you fail to read the book and you only go on the cover of the book, if the cover has absolutely nothing to do with the contents of the book, then the book has fooled you. But look what I just said. It fooled you, which means in order for it to fool you, you must be playing the part of a fool. You see, you cannot fool someone who's not falling for the foolishness, who doesn't engage in the foolery, because a fool, oh my God, do I have to really dig into this? My people perish for lack of knowledge. A fool shall perish in his folly. So all of y'all playing the fool, acting the fool, like that old song used to say, everybody plays the fool sometimes. Okay? Every race plays the fool sometimes too. And black folks, y'all playing the fool. Major league. But y'all ain't want to hear that. Then allow me now to show you why you don't judge a book by its cover. A lot of people have a lot of opinions today about everything that we have done with the NFAC, with the pro-black movement, with arming ourselves, with all of the displays of force, and the lack of any response. And I heard somebody say, we ain't done nothing. We ain't done a damn thing but walked around. I find that interesting that we haven't done anything, because last time I checked, prior to May 11th of this year, none of you was talking about guns, gun clubs, gun rights, pro-black, militia this, militia that. None of you. White people was running around with their guns, calling themselves whatever. Nobody was paying them no mind. We've been had organizations out here that called themselves parts of the pro-black movement, and they've been here all this time, but the things wasn't turned up like they was now. People wasn't getting in the streets like they was now. People weren't fearing guns. Gun sales were not up. None of this was going on until Yah saw fit to send one as an example to wake you up, fire you up, get you up, and position you to get up out of here once and for all. And I don't care how you feel about it, but that person is me. And ever since then, this has spun up and grown into something that has affected every part of the black community, every part of the white community, our government, even nations abroad, because it's bigger than me. I'm just the tool that he used, whether you like it or not, because you're being a judge. Let me help you all out. Those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. Y'all quick to talk about Malcolm. You quick to talk about Martin. You quick to quote Bobby. You always want to bring that up. But what you don't do and what you continue to do is exemplify your ignorance of not reading the book that you're sitting in judgment of, because you're judging the book by its cover. And I quote, the Afro-American militant is a militant because he defends himself. He defends his family, his home, and his dignity. He does not introduce violence into a racist social system. The violence is already there and has always been there. It is precisely this unchallenged violence that allows a racist social system to perpetuate itself. When people say that they're opposed to blacks resorting to violence, what they really mean is that they're opposed to blacks defending themselves and challenging the exclusive monopoly of violence practiced by white people. Quote, unquote. Oh, who said that? Because it was none of the people that I just named for you. His name was Robert F. Williams. You know, he wrote a book called Negroes with Guns. Let's talk a little bit about my man. Let me uplift for a second somebody who walked in the shoes that I'm walking in. Let's talk a little bit in case you don't know who Robert F. Williams was. Most of y'all think that Malcolm X was the one who said by any means necessary. Most of y'all think that the Black Panthers was the first one to bring them things out. The first African-American civil rights leader to advocate armed resistance to racial oppression and violence was a man by the name of Robert F. Williams. He was born on February 26, 1925, in a place called Monroe, North Carolina. NC stand up. He was the fourth of 5 children. His mama was named Emma, and his dad was named John. See, this is about you not knowing your history. And he grew up in the deep, dirty South, and the Ku Klux Klan ruled things down in those towns. And they were powerful, and they were feared in Monroe. And the community where Williams grew up experienced regular brutalizations at the hands of the whites. Now, you have to understand, I told y'all slavery wasn't that long ago. Williams' grandmother, who was a well-read, proud black woman, she was born a slave in Union County in 1858. Remember, they didn't so-called pass the Emancipation Proclamation till 1865. So we back in 1858. Okay? His grandmama was a slave. But she taught her son, she taught her grandson to cherish his heritage and to stand up for himself. And before she died, she presented her young grandson with something that black folks were not supposed to have: a gun, a rifle that belonged to his grandfather as a symbol of their family's resistance against racial oppression. This is way before any of the people that y'all like to keep alluding to when you see what we're doing, because believe it or not, it's happening the exact same way again. Oh, but let's go back, because this young man went on to join the military. Oh, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? After high school, Williams joined the Marines in hopes of being assigned to information services. He wanted to become a journalist. Yeah, he wanted to become a journalist. He wanted to do TV stories and radio. Same way when I joined, they said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I like to work in radio." Oh, they stuck me real good. They stuck me in what's called a rat rig, a radio and teletype truck, where I sat there. I was in radio, all right. I was on the radio calling in coordinates for artillery strikes or communicating information down over these subnets. Oh, I was on the radio, all right, but it's not the radio that I thought. I was the radio man in a combat unit so that I would end up getting killed very quickly. Same thing for this young man right here. He received a typical assignment given to African-American Marines at the time. He was, oh, here we come, everybody being a judge. He was made a supply sergeant. Interesting. Williams' resistance to the Marine Corps racial discrimination earned him an undesirable discharge, and he returned to Monroe. They discharged him as a private, took all his rank from him, kicked him out. Where's the similarity in that? I saw somewhere that someone said that I was a supply sergeant. I was not. A supply sergeant is a 92 Alpha. I was not. I was a 75 Bravo and a 31 Charlie and a 71 Lima and a few other MOSs. But just like him, I couldn't put up with all the racial discrimination that I dealt with. So I went left and said, fuck all of that, fought the system. So after serving from 1989 all the way until 2006, I too was discharged and reduced in rank from all the rank that I had acquired. And that's what they do to black folks. Forfeiture of all pay and allowances and your rank. So no, it is not possible to stay in the military 18 years and leave a private unless you did something that pissed them off so badly that they were like, fuck you, and you're not going to get anything for all of the time. So you keep thinking that I'm a private if you want to. What you're really looking at is a brother that said, fuck the system, and I'm not putting up with this racism no more. And they say, well, fuck you too. And I said, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And here I am now. Well, that's the same thing that this gentleman did. Remember, he's the first African-American civil rights leader to advocate armed resistance to racial oppression. And y'all still talking about the 60s. Bruh, we way before that, in the same footsteps. But remember, today we talking about the judge, the book, and the cover. Now, in this book, let us dig a little deeper into my friend here. In 1956, Williams took over leadership of the local chapter of the NAACP, which was close to disbanding due to a relentless backlash by the Ku Klux Klan. Williams went out and got some new members, and he expanded the branch from 6 people to more than 200 members. You see, back then, the NAACP, still its true purpose had not been revealed to the people, because he thought that, well, if I jump into this and I militarize my brothers and sisters, we can defend ourselves against the Klan and we can take it to the man. That's what he thought. But little did he know that he was going to find out later on in life, as I'm about to share with you all, that the NAACP can be your friend and your enemy at the same time. He expanded the branch now, and now they're ready to get out and do some things. The same time, the same brother filed for a charter for the National Rifle Association, the NRA, and he formed what's called the Black Guard, an armed group committed to the protection of Monroe's black population. Does it sound familiar to you? What is the purpose of the NFAC? The protection of the black people, the self-policing of the black nation, the education on the safety and the constitutional rights of guns. I've said this many times in many interviews and in many places. That's interesting. That's the same thing that he was doing. He even formed the Black Guard. I formed the NFAC. He filed for a charter under the NRA. I don't associate with political groups. He then went so forward as tried to beef up the chapter of what all the OGs was working in, the NAACP, and pumped them up to 200 members. We read in the book. With his fellow NAACP members, Williams waged local civil rights campaigns. And he brought the conditions of the Jim Crow South to the attention of the national and the international media. Well, isn't that strange? NFAC has garnered the attention of the national and the international media. Williams led an ongoing fight to integrate the local public swimming pools, and he opposed the condemnation of 2 young African-American boys for the crime of kissing a white girl during a harmless children's game, a cause that's been deemed too controversial for the national NAACP to touch. See what just happened? The national level said, no, we're not going to touch that. That's too controversial, because some kids was kissing and they called it a crime. Okay. So, in 1959, after a jury in Monroe acquitted a white man for the attempted rape of a black woman, Williams made a historic statement on the courthouse steps. Doesn't this sound familiar to y'all? After the killing of Breonna Taylor, we had to make some historic statements on the courthouse steps. Have you read the book yet? He went up there and he said, of his courthouse proclamation in a press conference, he said, I made a statement that if the law of the United States Constitution cannot be enforced in this social jungle called Dixie, it's time that Negroes must defend themselves, even if it is necessary to resort to violence. That there is no law here. There is no need to take the white attackers to the courts, because they will go free, and the federal government is not coming to the aid of people who were oppressed, and it is time for Negro men to stand up and be men, and if it is necessary for us to die, we must be willing to die. If it is necessary for us to kill, we must be willing to kill. Unquote. That was what he said on the courthouse steps. Now, here's the problem with that. The NAACP, they suspended Williams for advocating violence. Think about that. The NAACP, this organization that was supposed to be for black folks, in the face of all of that violence back then, said that what he said was a no. No, we don't want to fight nobody. We want to be patient. We want to work it out. We want to talk about it. That's what they said. So now listen. Oh my God, here comes the irony. Not the comedy, here comes the irony. I hope somebody's with me on the morning mental. I hope y'all not too bougie and stuck up and in denial about your own past, that you can't receive this. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. Here's karma. The NAACP suspended Williams for advocating violence. In 1961, the Freedom Riders came to Monroe to demonstrate for the efficacy of passive resistance. We're going to show you how it's done. We're going to bring signs and rainbows. We're going to chant. We're going to say no justice, no peace. We're going to say all of these things. That was the hallmark of the mainstream civil rights movement that was being led by Martin Luther King. You know what happened to them? An angry mob of Klansmen and Klan supporters overwhelmed the riders, who called upon Williams and the Black Guard for help. Y'all go out there talking about we ain't having it no more, but soon as you start busting y'all upside y'all damn head, oh, where's the Interfaith C? Where's the Interfaith C? Where's the Interfaith C? Now remember, this was the mainstream civil rights movement at the time. They believed in nonviolence. They believed in peacefully protesting. They believed in doing anything except exacting an eye for an eye against the people that were doing it to them. Not trying to be criminals, not trying to sneak around because I got my boys on standby because I'm in with a bunch of street gangs and people that can never take us to the next level politically or financially, that we would have to bring them up and fix the things they've damaged with them. No, this was the mainstream movement, the movement that was on the TV at night, the movement that they was writing about in the newspapers, the movement that they still push down your damn throat every time Black History Month comes and they want to talk about Black history. This is the same group of people that said that no, there shouldn't be no violence. And they marched their ass into Monroe and got their ass handed to them. And the first people they want to call was the Black Guard and Williams. Amid all that chaos, Williams actually sheltered a white couple from the black mob. Let me say that again. This brother turned around and helped hide two white people from the black mob. See, there was a black mob on the loose. The black mob wasn't the protesters that came with the Freedom Riders. The black mob was the people who were standing around saying, I like them boys. I like the Black Guard. I like the fact that we can bring some violence. I like all that shit. If they want to bring that smoke, then we lighting fires in this joint. Those people came out there and saw what happened. And when they saw them white folks attack the Freedom Riders, you know, the protesters, the demonstrators, when they saw them getting their ass handed to them by the same people that been handing their ass to them, they got together and said, you know what? Enough of this shit. And they attacked them and they started going after every white person in sight. It was this brother who said, I'm not going to let that happen, to a couple of white folks, and he sheltered them. You know how the white people repaid him for that? They charged him with kidnapping. Yes. You see how they do you? You see the system? So with state and local authorities looking for him for kidnapping, and all of these Klansmen calling for his death, they done got fired up. Robert and Mabel Williams and their two small children, they had to flee Monroe. It was the Cuban ruler, Fidel Castro, who granted Williams political asylum in Cuba. And the family spent the next 5 years in Havana. Isn't it interesting how all of your black revolutionaries are in Cuba? And even now, these white folks want to still reach out and grab them and kill them because they represent a bloodline that did not acquiesce to the system. Because the book, when you read it, you couldn't judge them by the cover. But Fidel Castro, who also put together a regime, whether the United States wants to call it dictatorship or whatever, had an uprising, and he granted and he supported what black folks were going through over here. So he gave people like Assata and Williams, he gave them a place. In the United States is no different. They grant political asylum to people that are running from governments that the United States is not in cahoots with. Well, you can come on over here. Robert and Mabel Williams, they did continue to fight for human rights from Havana through their news and music radio program. They had a radio show called Radio Free Dixie. And Williams put out a book called The Crusader, which reached an influential underground audience. In 1962, he wrote a book called Negroes with Guns. I encourage you all to go get a copy and read it, because this story is about to take a very interesting turn. In 1966, I was 3 years old. In 1966, Williams moved his family to China during the height of the Cultural Revolution. They don't teach y'all about the Cultural Revolution in China. There, as in Cuba, he enjoyed celebrity status and fraternized with Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai. He was revered as a black ruler. Let's look at the book again. When I leave the United States, I am treated as royalty. They never show you that in the media. You see, the rest of the world understands what we're going through. The rest of the world is happy to see someone stand up and speak just like they did back then. The rest of the world is happy to see someone getting people in the streets with guns. The rest of the world understands that the reason those guns have not fired yet is because no one has fired upon us or attacked us yet. So if you're one of those third grade educated people who think, well, they haven't done anything yet, you should be glad that we haven't done anything yet, because nothing's happened. You see, only a criminal thinks like a criminal. The same way black men like to get offended and then go attack each other, but won't band together to defend women and children that are being attacked in their neighborhoods. You're a criminal. So you think that an organization like the NFAC is supposed to function like your low vibration criminal ass, and we don't. That's why you're hiding. That's why you have to do things on the low, as you say. That's why you think everyone should act just like your criminal ass. But we're not that book. But oh, you can't read either. So that's why you rest on the laurels of people who came before you, as if the work they put in somehow translates to you. No, you got to do your own work, plant your own seeds, grow your own fruit, and then present that to the public. The fruit is in the works, not in your words. In 1969, Williams returned to the United States aboard a TWA flight that was chartered by the federal government. All charges against Williams were dropped, and he went on to advise the State Department on normalizing relationships with China. Did you know that a black militant revolutionary who was exiled eventually is the one who normalized relations with China and the United States? It wasn't a white man that did it. It was a black man that did it. Williams did not, however, assume leadership of what had become a divided and beleaguered Black Power movement. Listen to what I just said. It's 1969, and he returned to a country, not going to jail. Think about this. Not being prosecuted or persecuted or chased down. But what he saw was that the Black Power movement had become fractured, that it had lost all of its leaders, that fear had been injected, had infected the people, and that they were so busy fighting each other that there was no way that he could take charge and bring them back to where they were. This is the end of part 1 of The Judge, the book, and the cover. I'll see you all in a few minutes.